In this video, we're going to look at how to do a stratified randomized sampling methodology. The initial steps are very similar to the randomized sampling that we did a video on previously, so make sure to watch that. For this demonstration, we have the same list of schools, but with some additional information now. So on this list, we have 5,181 schools in the affected country that we've obtained from the Education Management Information System, or the EMIS. And the first question again is, how many of these schools do we need to go to? And as shown on the previous video, we can go to an online calculator to help us with that. This one from Rayosoft, the default being a 5% margin of error at 95% confidence level. Those are fairly standard, but you can adjust for your context. And here I've put in the 5,181 schools from our list. That generates a recommended sample size still of 358. So there's our magic number. Now we come back over here and now we get into the stratification, what we didn't cover in the previous video. Now you may want to use stratification to help with your analysis rather than just generating a randomized list of schools. You may want to be able to analyze by certain criteria. And so you can actually, when selecting your sample size, sort of impose some of those criteria during the selection process. So for schools and education, very often the strata might be, for example, the level of education, so pre-primary school or primary, secondary. It could be urban or rural, depending on what you want to look at. For this demonstration, I'll use two common strata called region, for the geographic region, as well as the type of school. Is it public or private? It's also a common strata that country teams might want to use. So unlike the randomized, the simple randomization where we could simply just randomize this list and select the 358, here we need to now impose what these strata are. So to help me with that, I'm going to use our best friend in the world, pivot table from Excel. I'm going to press OK. Okay, here we have our pivot table. First thing I'm going to do is take the region and bring that down to the rows. We can see the regions in the country. Our second strata that we were going to look at was type of school. I'm going to put that into columns in this case. And really I could probably use any of these, but I'm going to use school name and drop it into the values. And here we see that there are 5,181 in our grand total, so that looks correct. And we see the breakdown by private and public, as well as the by region. In fact, I can just for viewing pleasure, change that to region. Public, private, grand total. I could change to total number of schools. Okay. So we see that in ALF there are 344 total schools, and of those 47 are private and 297 are public. That's really useful to see. We can see very quickly the stratification in this table, but what we want is not this stratification on a breakdown of 5,181, but our magic number of 358. And so to do that, what we can do is right-click into your pivot table, summarize values by more options. We want to turn these into percentages of the grand total, and we can do that if we go to show data as, click, and then percentage of grand total. Okay. And again, just for ease of viewing, I'm going to take out some of these decimal points. And we can see, okay, great. So now, instead of the numbers, what we see in ALF, for example, 7% of all the schools in the country are located in that region. And of all schools in the country, 1%, and if we were to more like 0.9%, are private and 6% are public. Okay, with this, we can now generate our sampling, the number of schools for each of these categories. So I'm just going to copy, not the whole table, but just this section so I can, just because it's easier and I'm lazy. So I'm going to delete the information there and reformat it so it's not a percentage. And do a formula. So I want to take, for the private for ALF, that's cell B5, and times that by the 358 magic number, because we want this sort of ratio for the strata to stay the same, but on a smaller scale. So that comes to 3.24763559 schools. We'll come back to the rounding in a minute, but let's just get this part correct. So I'm going to copy and paste all of that, and we see, to make this easier, oops, I can take out some of that, and we can see that the numbers. So basically what this means is we need to go to 24 schools. By go to I mean assess. We need to assess 24 schools in ALF, and of those 3 need to be private and 21 should be public. And this now is essentially our stratified sample. Now we do still need to make sure it's randomized when we apply it back over to the school list. Very quickly, because this table is a bit misleading, it actually doesn't show 3, it shows 3.2, and we can't go to 3.2 schools. I suggest that we just quickly throw in a couple of extra columns here, and we round. To do that in Excel, it's quite simple. You do a formula, equals, round, select, and it wants to know, okay, what number do you want to round? This one. And then how many place marks after the decimal do you want? And I just want a whole number, so I'm going to put 0. And you can see it's now actually 3. So I'm going to paste that, and then paste that as well here. Because those are now formulas, what we want to do is make sure that they are no longer formulas but values. So copy and paste values over the top. Maybe transfer these headings over. Delete this one, and we'll delete this one. Oops, I forgot one more. So again, equals, round. What do we want to round? This number. How many decimal places? 0. It's a good formula to practice. Paste that down. Let's copy this over and delete this one. We don't really need it. Oops. That's what happens if you don't paste values. I'm going to undo. It looks like I made a couple mistakes there. So I've just undone that. Copy, let's paste those values there. Now we're good. I'm going to now transfer that over to the right cell this time and delete. You may have to rewind to watch that again. Sorry. So we've got our numbers. I don't want all these zeros. Now I can take those off because they are in fact whole numbers. This is now what we're after. So there are probably some very smart ways of going about and assigning these numbers to the actual number of schools that we need, but I'm going to do it in a very sort of slow way just so we can all follow along. So I'll write here actually what we need to first do is we need to randomize the list. So again, just like from the last video, equals rand, sorry, my finger slipped. I'm going to select it, press enter, double click here to paste it all the way down, copy and paste values so it's no longer a formula but a static randomized number between 0 and 1, and now I'm going to reapply, take the filters off, put them back on, and then put this in. Again, ascending or descending doesn't matter, but probably good to be consistent. So now they are organized in a randomized order. They've been shuffled around, so to speak. But now what I need to do is apply a sort, a custom sort. And here is really, everything to this point is kind of just preparing us for the stratification. So in the sorting is now where we're applying that stratification. So the first stratification we did was the region, and then we add another strata by type of school, and then finally this is where the randomization will take place by our column called random. And once we press enter, look at that. Isn't Excel just amazing? We have a list organized by our region, so we're starting alphabetically, ALF, And then within that, they being Excel, the Excel gods have organized by type of school, private and public. If we scroll down, you can see there's a list of public. Okay, and then finally, Excel has put it into a random order for us. So coming back now to remind ourselves, for AOF, we said we needed 3 private and 21 public. So again, probably much smarter ways of doing this, but very simplistically, we can just simply tick the first 3 on this list. 1, 2, and 3. Great. We said we needed how many for public? 21. So that was for private. Let's come down here. Here's AOF, the first AOF public school is listed here, and now we need 21. So that's going to be 1. Let's copy 1, 2, 3, 4. Paste, and I'm looking down at the sum, and yep, there's 21. So those are the schools that should be assessed in AOF, 3 of the privates and 21 of the publics. Again, like in the previous video on randomization, it's good to have some replacements for your replacement strategy. When you provide this list to the assessment teams going out into the field, they may not find the school, it may not exist, there could be whatever might come up, and so you should indicate somehow with a 2, an R for replacement, or writing out replacement, and however many you think would be smart to provide them with. The more schools, probably the more, you should probably throw in a few extra replacements. So again, whatever you feel is important. So once, I'm going to extend my filter here. Let's take it off and put it back on. Once you've done that for all of the regions, you'll just simply be able to remove the blanks from this column on your sample filter. And you can then just simply copy and paste the list of schools, provide that to your assessment team without, they don't need the random number, so we can take that off or hide it. And there you go, you've got the 24 schools that they need to visit with a few replacements according to your stratification of region and whether it's private or public. When the data comes in, you'll be able to then do some pretty interesting analyses based on the stratification. Make sure, and then of course you'll need to do that for the additional regions. Coming back to our table, and then go to our goal, but make sure you mark 1 private and 8 public for a total of 9. For a sub, it'll be 23, etc., all the way down until you have all 358 schools identified with their replacements. All right, hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll talk next time.